Hey Mo,
Hey Ricky, how we doing?
you don't sound so good, my honey. But the doctor is in and she's sick. What
The
happens
doctor
when the
is in.
doctor gets sick?
The
Even
doctor's
doctors
almost
get
out.
sick.
The doctor's without
The
doctor almost.
doctor's almost out for the night. I got some hot toddy and we're getting ready to wrap it up. But before we do, we got to get the latest wrap up on San Antonio Breast Cancer Symposium because if you missed it, like I missed it, you missed it. You missed out. So we got to get all caught up.
And we got our team, our family, Haley Dinnerman, Triple Negative Breast Cancer Foundation, and our cancer fashionista, Melissa Berry, my girls. And we took it by storm. We had our own little studio and we like pulled people off the street and interviewed, and we have all kinds of good stuff. But I'm going to start with our video because it's so cute. We just love this.
We love our video.
So
Roll
good.
that
Hi
bean
guys,
footage.
say hi guys, say hi.
Let's see it.
Say hi you guys.
Hey.
All right, I'm going to start with our video. It's so cute. Now I lost it. Always happens, right? Darn, I lost it. Hold on. You guys keep talking.
Okay.
Put
Maybe should we tell everyone what the San Antonio Breast Cancer Symposium is?
Sure.
Kelly, you're so good at it.
Me?
Go
Okay,
for it.
well,
Yeah.
Go
Say it,
for it.
Haley. Tell
well,
it. Yeah.
SABCS is the San Antonio Breast Cancer Symposium. It is where leading researchers from all over the world gather once a year to discuss the latest treatment options, the latest data that relates to breast cancer. And here's the video. So I'm going to stop talking right now.
10,000 people come from all over the world. Okay, here we go. Hold on.
Make sure we have music.
I know that's so make sure we have music. I'm really throwing this up today. Technology is not working in my favor. Here we go.
It's worth it, you guys.
I know it's going to be so great. Oh my goodness gracious. It's coming here. I did it so perfectly before, right? Okay.
There we go. Feel like dancing now, Ricky.
I know I was dancing. Don't you love our private planes? I don't know what I like better.
If only, Ricky, we had private
our
planes
private
taking us
planes
to
are
SABCS.
our shoes, like my cowboy boots, or my little touch shirt. I love my little touch shirt. Right?
It's great. Look, we try to make it fun because the idea behind this program, this three-way collaboration, is to bring our, SABCS to our audiences.
Yeah.
So you can find out in real time, and then with recaps like this, what all the new data is, what you need to know to empower yourself in order to advocate for yourself, in order to, make sure that you're taking advantage of the absolute latest in research and science.
And look, breast cancer is complicated. I feel like
you
don't know, if you don't know me and Haley and Ricky, we're friends above and beyond everything else. And I feel like there's nothing more, comforting than like having your friends show you around. And that's why we do what we do, because we want you to feel the support like a friend would give support.
Yeah, and we don't really understand the science, so we kind of depend on each other, and then we like text Mo or come back to Mo or call our docs and say, what does this mean? And Haley made friends with some of the most amazing scientists for TNBC, like in 2006, like early on.
And that's because we support the research. That's what it is. We fund research. And so we have a direct line of communication with some of the top researchers. And we took advantage of that for this program, right, Melissa? We basically, you know, as Ricky said, so much of what's presented is way above our heads. It is meant for a medical audience. So Dr. Mo would be right at home in these sessions, but for us, some of the information is like, whew, way
We need
over our heads.
translators. We
Even
need
for us, some of that information historically, SABCS has not always really included a lot of the surgical trials. It hasn't always included radiation. I mean, now it does. In the last, I'll say 10 years or so, it really has opened up and has become a place for everybody to bring every kind of research that relates. But, you know, the drug trials and the disease-free survival versus the progression-free survival versus the overall survival versus the, you know, this drug gave you 14 more months of survival can get a little bit overwhelming, because it's like, okay, how do I interpret that in the context of is it clinically important? Is it practice changing? Does it change people's lives? Is this things we should be telling patients about? Like, is this really groundbreaking, or is this just the latest update on what's been going on for the study over the last X number of years? And it can be really hard to tease that out. So I think having some guides along the way and being able to talk to people in their respective specialties is a really nice thing that you all do to break down what's important about what we just heard, right? Like, we saw a lot of posters on TNBC, but of all those posters, what was the highlight? And so really help us to understand it better.
And what's ready for prime time. That's what I like to say. Like,
What is going to happen soon,
you know,
right?
Yes, like we all are reading, you know, the same, you know, updates, right? The same literature. And you'll hear, for example, about a TNBC vaccine. Can I go to CVS and get it next week? When is it going to be ready? Who is it for? And so these were the kinds of questions that we were getting from our community. And what we did was we tracked down the people that were running that vaccine trial, and Melissa interviewed them. And we have all these incredible interviews with leaders in research on the website that, you know, we prepared just for this three-way collaborative program. It's your guide to SABCS.com. And Ricky, oh, thank you, Ricky. You're putting it up right now.
There it is.
And so if you scroll down on this website, and I really, really encourage everyone to look at that. First of all, you could see that video and dance.
Right, there it is.
Whenever you want.
Well, this is last year's again.
See our private jets.
I don't know why this one is last year's. I think it's because, Ricky, you have to, you have to go through it. You have to probably, it's probably a cookie situation, but either way, it's the same thing. When you go down, you will get updates to SAB, you know, like daily updates of things that were presented that our lovely Emily from Touch, the Black Breast Cancer Alliance, put together for us, which was incredible. And we also have all of the different the interviews, like that interview with the vaccine trial investigator that I referenced, and so many other incredible interviews. This is this year's, Ricky. That's the updates, but these are the updates. And we really encourage you to take a look at them, because we tried, or Emily tried, to really put everything in lay people's terms, so that, you know, we're the audience, right? Like Melissa, you always say, I'm the audience. And if we can understand it, then we know it'll be understandable to you also.
Yeah, we tried really hard to get people to translate. I don't know if you remember when we went to the Exact Sciences event, you know, Exact Sciences makes Oncotype, the Oncotype test. And some people have taken it, some people haven't, but I'm like, y'all have to explain this so people can understand it. We don't really understand what genomics is, and they did a good definition. We try to do that here and really explain, what is that test for? What's meaningful about it? How does it work for Black women? How does it work for everybody? And so I think we tried really hard to translate that. So like, talk to me like I'm a 6-year-old, you know, that's what I always say, right? But I think that one of the cool things that we did do, and you guys can read this, is we kicked off the week with a Touch event, and we held an event on Monday, the day before SABCS, a clinical trials town hall. And we had 8 speakers, one from the FDA, one from our pharma partners, 2 breasties. We had the American Cancer Society represented, but we really tried to, and some of our, you know, our partners, we tried to break down what's going on with clinical trial research and how Black people are being included, and all the things that we need to do and all the success stories that we can escalate to help make that happen even more. So that was a great start. And then we went into the week and just hit the road thing. Do you want to highlight some of the findings for Haley?
Sure. So I think, one of the things that I guess, and Dr. Mo, maybe you can put this in perspective for us a little bit later, but I think we always go into these meetings so hopeful, right? We want to come back to you and say, we found a magic bullet. This is
Here's a cure.
There's a cure, or there is this phenomenal life extending treatment
Right.
that's ready for you to go to your doctor and ask for right now. But the last couple of years, and we're told by our experts that, it's kind of because, of this delay because of COVID, people, did not go for surveillance when they should have. They delayed treatment sometimes. And so there's a little bit of, a lag, right, in the research. And Dr. Mo is nodding yes. So, I see that you agree as well, but we heard that over and over again. So we didn't come back this year with, huge advances, right, in triple negative research, at least. But we did see on the final day, and we have an interview with Dr. Telly from Dr. Melinda Telly from Stanford that you can look at. She gave one of the last sessions, the last presentations at the conference, and usually they save some of the most important things for the final days. And what she did was she went through triple negative breast cancer, kind of the evolution of where we started and where we are right now. And one of the things that struck us most when we were speaking to her is she was talking about how a patient that came to her 15 years ago would have had really so little, if anything at all, like that she could offer them. Whereas now there are, in the metastatic setting, right, there are a couple of approved therapies, which is incredible. There's so much knowledge about triple negative, what it is, what it isn't, how to personalize treatment. And so we have that. And then, of course, there were some other, more specific things about early stage disease, which we didn't have before. And that is, Keytruda plus chemotherapy being pretty effective, right? It's effective and it shows promise for early stage triple negative breast cancer, especially for, high risk early stage patients.
And that is practice changing for us. I'll jump in here and say that because, when I see a patient and I diagnose with triple negative breast cancer, we used to use certain criteria to judge whether or not they would get neoadjuvant chemotherapy or chemo before their surgery. And the criteria that we used to use was sort of rudimentary, like, well, if you have a big tumor and a small breast, okay, then maybe you need something to downstage your tumor. Or if it's more than, say, 2 to 2.5 centimeters, then that would be a reason. Or if you're young, or if your lymph nodes are involved, those are all good reasons to give, systemic therapy before surgery. But now, knowing that there are other agents that we can use and that are going to improve overall survival and reduce the risk of recurrence, I think it helps surgeons, especially, like, this is why I think it's important, because surgeons want to operate and they want to do it first. And they're like, okay, I'm a hammer with a nail. Let me use my hammer and let me get rid of your cancer. But the science behind why we might need to do chemo first is making us rethink that approach. And that is something that I think a lot of women aren't necessarily being offered. And there's an equity issue there as well, because, you go to your community surgeon, they're not thinking, okay, let's get you this chemo because it's going to save your life. They're like, let's get your cancer out because that's what I do. And I want to get you while you're here and do the thing I can do while you're here. And I get it. But TNBC really did force us to explore personalized medicine and precision oncology in a way that hormone receptor positive disease didn't always, because we could always blame it on the estrogen receptor. We always, we're looking for new drugs and ways to put, more to get more longevity out of estrogen blockers. But when you don't know what's driving a cancer to grow, it forces you to look at everything. And so I really appreciate that. The trial is called Keynote 522. Like, they keep giving us more reasons why chemo up front might be better. And it's something that needs to filter down to the community. Because, Ricky, when you look at, who's doing chemotherapy, maybe 52 to 58% of Black women might do it. And there's a whole bunch of people who are like, you're not giving me that poison. I don't want it. but it might be life-saving for them.
Yeah.
And Dr. Mo, like the cool thing that, I took away from, Keynote 522 is not just that it's effective, but that you're talking about event-free survival, right? So no complications really that are coming out of this type of therapy early on.
Explain what that is to our audience. It's a trial. Keynote.
Event-free survival?
No. Keynote.
Oh.
Yeah, so Keynote 522 is a phase 3 study that's looking at the effectiveness of Keytruda in combination with chemotherapy before surgery. Because previously, we really had looked at Keytruda after surgery. If there's residual disease or if you got metastatic disease, then you get Keytruda. And if you didn't get it up front, there's a lot of people who wanted it on the back end who had residual disease, but they didn't meet the insurance criteria for it. So now they started an arm where they're looking at it. Well, what happens if you've got early stage disease and we give it up front with your chemo? Is it going to improve your survival? And what she's saying is event-free survival, right? So Haley, what do you understand about event-free survival? What's that mean to you?
What it means to me is none of the usual complications that you would get. So your quality of life is taken into consideration when you're talking about, event-free survival. So it's not that it's just a life extending, but you're in misery living on the toilet, right?
You can go to your kid's game. You can cook.
Exactly. You can go on with your life. You can have a good quality of life while on this therapy. And I think that's everything, right?
Yeah. I think the other thing I learned too I think what you're saying too is, so that's one trial. But what I heard about, there were so many trials and so many more of our drug companies doing trials on triple negative that hadn't been doing that before. So we heard about a lot of new trials. And so if you do have triple negative or know anyone, there are so many trials out there for early stage and for metastatic. So there's a lot of science happening. I felt so much more, robust science was happening about triple negative this time around, and more companies that didn't really talk about triple negative a year ago, 2 years ago, are now in the space. And
absolutely
are with base
Definitely.
trial. And phase 3 trials, you guys, means you can do them. They're for people. They've been tested for safety, and now they're in a place where they're testing the drug for dosing, for efficacy, for other things. And so they're safe and really good ways to get treatment. And frankly, I'm not a doctor. I just play one here, like with Mo's help. But if you're under 40 and you have triple negative, do a trial, think about it, consider it, think about it, talk about it, and we can help you figure that out.
Well, the good news is that, people who have been on this trial are finally getting to realize that it actually helped, it worked, and that this is, and folks who were on, lung trials with Keytruda, because we learned about Keytruda from lung cancer, right? Yeah. And so for all those people who had lung cancer and were on a clinical trial, like, this is the fruit of your labor, right? Of your sacrifice, of your willingness to be on that trial, now helps us to say, well, let's see what happens when we put it in breast. There's a lot of similarities between breast and lung cancer. There's some differences, but if this drug works here, can we see if it can work here also? And it is, and it's helping. And I think that people really need to look at that when you think about the trial that you were on, and the ability for that trial to help so many more people, even beyond the disease that you have. It can help so many.
Yep, I think the other third thing I learned too from our friends at Merck was that they're gonna start to track real world data, meaning how is the drug performing in the marketplace with patients now. So now that the drug has been out of there, and even for Black women especially, there weren't a lot of us in the clinical trial, but now they're tracking how it's helping women. And so in a year we'll be able to have data that says, this is how well it's doing, and how many people are getting better from it. So I think we're hearing a lot more about that, and we will too, even at the next couple.
It's a much more accurate way for us to see how the treatment will affect not just a small group of people, but a more diversified group of people.
Right. So what are some of the other things we learned about? Oh, now my Alexa's giving me the weather.
There were so many great takeaways. I thought, for me as a patient advocate, this was only the second time that I was attending SABCS. And, one thing that we always continue to learn. I guess I didn't realize that a clinical trial is not a last resort. In fact, what I learned is that it's almost like an upgrade. It's like a upgrade to your standard of care, and that no matter, even if you were diagnosed yesterday or you're in the middle of treatment, ask your doctor about clinical
Yeah.
trials. You have nothing to lose, right, Ricky? I'm sure
Nothing to
clinical
lose.
trials are like your middle name now.
You have nothing to lose.
And Ricky, why don't we tell people where they can find clinical trials? Because you were talking before about early stage and metastatic setting. You know, I know Triple Negative Breast Cancer Foundation has 2 free clinical trial matching services on our website, one for early stage disease and one for metastatic, but you have taken it even further. So will you talk a little bit
gonna
about when
show
we
you.
trial?
I'm going to show you my new baby. I'm so proud of this. So, you
I
know,
love
when
this. We have like show and tell tonight. There's a lot
I know
of
we do,
know, I know.
so somebody else should be doing the show and tell, not me. Because I'm not technically literate right now. No, so we, you know, on our When We Trial website, we now have a trial portal that's just for us. And of course I can't find it. Give me a second. But it's, so you can go, so this is, I'm going to scroll up and go to whenwetrial.org. Right. You know, that picture is me and Haley and Amanda, right?
Oh, I know. It's one of my favorite pictures. I
I
love
know.
it.
So whenwetrial.org, and then you go to search. So here's, you know, our website, then search clinical trials. That's where we are. And if you scroll down, start searching, and we have a portal now. See, When We Trial and Touch.
It's that easy.
It's that easy. So you just go here, browse trials, and it'll ask you a bunch of questions about your disease. And basically, as you see here, this data is pulled from the master clinical trial site, clinicaltrials.gov. But basically, we've put a blanket around it, a warm fuzzy around it. So it's not horrible like that, but it asks you questions about you, you know, who you are, how old you are, what disease you have, and that matches you to trials for your illness. And then we can sort of keep track of you and help you out. We have a number in there if you want to call us, if you want to talk about it, if you want to chat about it, we're there for you. But we basically now can help you find a trial, and it's really easy. It's really easy. So we're very
And the same is true for, you know, the TNBC Foundation
Yeah.
portals. So you have options, and you know, no one does analogies like Dr. Mo, but I'm going to try for one. You know, I feel like with clinical trials, it's almost like flying first class, right? The plane's going to take all the passengers, right, to where they need to go. And it's the same type of thing. You're always going to get the standard of care. So when you're in a clinical trial, it's not like you're getting anything less, but you might get more, right?
I love that.
You might
I
get
do
more.
too. That's a really good analogy. It's like you're on the
Melissa
plane.
came up with it. I think it
right?
was
You're
Melissa.
on the
Was that
plane.
yours?
I love that.
It was like mid-interview. I was like, as I was saying it, I was like, I hope that makes sense. But I guess if
Yes.
you guys think it does.
I think it's good. Well, because honestly, like people don't realize that, you know, there is no sugar pill, right? Ricky says it all the time. We say it all the time. People have a misconception about what a clinical trial is. You're always going to get the standard of care, but
Right.
you might get something that's not available to everyone else in addition to that.
We
And
wouldn't
it
have
might help
Advil
you.
if there were no clinical trials. We wouldn't have a lot of things if not for clinical
Wouldn't
trials.
have Advil, we wouldn't have the heart medicine I give Harper, and you know, we wouldn't have anything. And so it's all really, really good.
And I think it's important for people to know, and just to kind of reiterate about the phases of trials though, because the phase 3 ones means we're ready to take off, you know, and that this plane is ready to go. The phase 2 and phase 1 ones are really where the discoveries are still being made. So when you look at like a phase 1 trial, like the TNBC vaccine by Anixa, right? Anixa Biosciences, it involves 16 women. Right. So phase 1, they're still trying to figure out, and they've kind of got the dose right, but they want to see how humans respond. They want to see and make sure that it stimulates the immune system the right way. They want to make sure that they got it right so that if it does well in those 16, now we can go to 1,000. Now we can take that 1,000 and we can go to 10,000. Now we can take that 10,000 and we can really make it ready for everybody for whom it's eligible, and then see who else might benefit from it. And so trials are sort of walked out in those phases. So you have to sort of think about also what phase of the trial is it, and really it makes you have to know, if you're going to use this portal, you need to know something about your diagnosis. And
Right.
a really great place to start are any of the websites that these women have. Whether it's Cancer Fashionista, she has stuff on finding your diagnosis and how do you talk to your doctor about what your diagnosis is. Whether it's touch, whether it's TNBC Foundation, you can use the tools that are there to figure out, okay, what's my diagnosis and what does that really mean? What's my hormone receptors? What's my tumor size? So that you can input the right stuff into these portals to find the trials that you're eligible for, because it's going to ask you for some information and you might not know, but those are good questions to ask your doctor.
Right.
Will they be on the path report, Dr. Mo?
So
Is
the
that a
size
place
of the
for people to
tumor,
find?
the size of the tumor won't. And a lot of people get that confused because it'll say the size of the sample they got, the size of the core. It'll say 1 centimeter of blah, blah, blah. That's not the size of your tumor. That's how much tissue the pathologist got to look at from the
Right.
little biopsy sample. So the tumor size won't be on there, and they will ask that to see if your tumor is eligible. Your lymph node status, it might be on your path report, but like the hormone receptors, that will be on there. The Ki-67 or the proliferative rate, that stuff will be on there. So yeah, most of it will be on there. Between the path report and the radiology report, you should be able to get it all from your portal.
That's
Yeah,
great. That's
yeah,
where
yeah.
people
That's
should
great.
start looking.
Great.
Sure.
I want to go back to the sugar pill thing for a second, because we recently came across a trial that's called a double-blind trial. And in a double-blind trial, they do have what they're calling a placebo drug, which means you're going to get standard of care no matter what. And then they're going to layer another drug on top. So you're going to get standard care, you're going to be taken care of, and you're going to get what we're now calling the purpose pill or the new drug, right? So you could get a purpose pill, right? And so they say placebo, think purpose pill. You're going to get something, as Haley said, is the first class element, right? On top of that. So if you have issues with that, call, so we'll help you understand that better. But I also like to think of our portal as, I compare everything to buying shoes, right? So
We can all relate to that.
We can all relate. Yes.
or you go to the store, you go to Macy's, you go to Nordstrom's, whatever, and you say, you see the shoes you like, you walk around the floor, you see the shoes you like, you give it to the salesperson, which it takes forever for them to come to you. They finally come to you. There's like 3 for 20 people, right? You give them tell them the shoe you want and your size. They disappear for 20 minutes, whatever. Like you're sitting there pacing the floor, waiting for them to come back. And they come back and say, sorry, we didn't have your size. So you say, well, do you have them in another color? And the same thing happens again. Well, what the portal does is like buying shoes online. I go online, I go to whatever, Nordstrom.com or whatever, Macy's.com or whatever the store is, and I put in my size, the color I want, and the kind of heel I want or whatever. And all of a sudden, all the shoes I get are the ones I can buy. They're just for me, right? They're all there for me. So that's what the portal does. It gives you all the drugs that you can, all the trials you can do that are just for you. And you don't have to worry about, them not having your size. So that's why it works so well. So.
And the reason we have to do this is because clinicaltrials.gov is
Going to
so
hell.
overwhelming. Even for people like us who spend a lot of time looking at these things, it's hard, it's difficult. So, advocacy groups really do try to make it much easier.
Yeah.
And, what is the Metastatic Breast Cancer Alliance also has a great one.
A great portal, and breastcancertrials.org.
Yes.
We kind of took the best of them and made ours. And so also we have an element where we can help you. Sort of once you go into their portals, we really can't help you, but we have a way we can help you and track you and keep you, answer your questions and have a conversation about it if you need help. So that's what we love about ours. But there was a lot of talk this week about the TNBC vaccine. A lot of talk.
I was so happy Melissa was able to interview the lead investigator.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Yeah, what'd you
tell
learn?
us.
I mean, this is really interesting. So I interviewed Dr. G. Thomas Budd from the Cleveland Clinic, and here's what I want to share. There is a lot of work being done on this vaccine, and it's amazing. And something I've learned as a patient advocate is that, these breakthroughs don't happen at like lightning speed. It's very incremental. And of course, even being in this space, I heard vaccine, SABCS. Ooh, this sounds like this is something we're going to have our hands on quickly. It's actually not. And I don't want to discourage anyone that's listening, but the truth of the matter is that the fact that it's even being worked on right now, and it is being worked on diligently, is very hopeful. Now, it may not be ready for some time, but remember, there was not even the word triple negative breast cancer in 2000 until 2005, or was it 6, Haley?
Around there,
Yeah.
2005.
So it is not anywhere near ready for prime time, but it is being, I mean, I'm just giving you the broad strokes of it, but it is being worked on, and the researchers that have their hands on it are really passionate and really want to continue to move the needle on it, but it's not something that's going to be ready anytime in the very near future.
Yeah, and I think, people are like, well, the COVID vaccine was made in a year. Now everybody's thinking a vaccine can be made real
Yes.
fast, right? And I mean,
The reality is the COVID vaccine wasn't made in a year. The technology for mRNA vaccines took several years. It took a decade, and the timing happened to be right for them to be able to crank that thing out
right.
because of the 10 years of prior research that led up to the COVID-19 vaccine. But, these things, they do take time. I mean, 3 to 6 years of preclinical research, if not longer, and then once you get to that phase 1, another several years. And then once you get to phase 2, it can be another, 3 to 5 years. So this whole pipeline really takes a lot of time because there's so many steps to make sure that it's safe. And I think that's what people underestimate. They think the FDA is just cranking stuff out, and just trying to put drugs on the market, and that they're all on the take. There's so many years. It's like watching somebody win like an Oscar, or better yet, a Grammy, right, for music, and not realizing that they were a backup singer, right, before, for like 10, 15 years, right? And then they were like a songwriter before that, and then they were like a starving artist before that, trying to get a jingle on a commercial. Like it's been in the pipeline for a really long time before you got to the big stage.
It's so true. And people think it just happened overnight, but as Melissa asked specifically, and this is from the Cleveland Clinic, they said it could be double-digit numbers before it's shown to be both effective and is available. So assuming everything goes well, it could even be, 8 to 10 years.
Yeah. So our friends from Agendia are online with us tonight. Say hi, guys. How are you guys? Who's out there? Let us know who's out there. Is it you, Victoria? But we are very grateful to our sponsors, and we had some, our pharma partners really step up to support us kind of at the last minute too. So we're grateful for Daiichi, for Gilead, for Merck, for Pfizer, for Lilly, for Eisai, and for you, Agendi. And thanks for joining us tonight, Agendi. We're grateful you're here.
Oh, hey, Erica.
Hey, Erica. We see Erica. Thanks for stopping by.
I think it's a good time to talk about immunotherapy, right? Because so much of what's happening in TNBC is immunotherapy. And what that is it takes a snippet from a person's tumor, and then it incorporates that information. This is at least for the vaccine trials, because the vaccine initially is geared at preventing recurrence. And, Ricky, one of the things you always say is that, TNBC is the only breast cancer that doesn't have a drug to prevent recurrence. Right. And so now they're able to take a little bit of that tumor and incorporate that into an mRNA vaccine. And then it targets the immune system to destroy TNBC cells. So if it recognizes TNBC, that's the gatekeeper. And it's like the bouncer bouncing people out of the club. And then it targets and destroys them. And so what they want to do from there is that they want to look at, whether or not this helps in people who have BRCA mutations, PALB2 mutations, folks whose their immune machinery is already a bit damaged, right? Because they have mutations in those gatekeeper genes. And so this is really interesting and exciting because, if we've always believed that our immune systems are the source and the secret, right? And now they really are. And we're starting to show how we can use our immune system to fight cancer. And I think that's really powerful.
It is really powerful. Melissa, how many doctors did you interview? Oh my God.
Oh my gosh. I started counting them like a lot. And, they were all so amazing in their own right. Starting with, and this is in no particular order, but Eric Weiner, who is very, very well-versed, to say the least, in breast cancer space, and was truly an honor to speak with him. And as we mentioned, for anyone that's just tuning in, if you go to your guide to SABCS.com, we have all of these interviews there. But I interviewed Eric Weiner, George Sledge, Dr. Lisa Carey. Dr. Melinda Telly was wonderful also because, as Helly mentioned earlier, Dr. Telly was one of the sessions later on in the symposium, and she's really terrific and a true friend to the organization. As mentioned, I spoke to Dr. G. Thomas Budd of the Cleveland Clinic about the TNBC vaccine, Dr. Stacy Mulder, Dr. Lynn McRoy, CFAN, and Dr. Mary Pinder-Shank. And I mean, my head was like, I mean, after all these interviews, there's just so much to absorb. But before we got on this call, I'm like, what are some common themes? And, one theme that came up at SABCS that I didn't expect, and Ricky, you were actually co-author on this poster, is clinical meaningfulness. And, the fact that there are incredible treatments for breast cancer, but now because science has advanced so much, there's a way that the doctors and the researchers can get better at balancing killing the cancer, but being able to minimize the side effects and to really maintain our quality of life. Did you want to maybe speak to that a little bit?
Yeah. And I worked on this poster with our friends from Gilead, and I actually moderated some focus groups that kind of led to the poster. And it was really it was like a delicate dance between, do you want to take the drug and get cured, or, get your cancer taken away, or do you want to go to your kid's baseball game? Why can't you do both? And what does it really mean to, like what kind of role can a patient play in this decision about this drug, right? How much do you influence what happens with your body? And what are you kind of willing to tolerate to save your life, basically, right? And how do you measure that? Because, when Allison was alive and Allison was in so much pain, and we would make jokes about that 1 to 10 scale. They'd say, well, how big is your pain today, Allison? A 1 to a 10, like, what, WTF? Like, how do you decide that? Like, who measures who? What does that mean, right? What's a 9? What's an 8? What's a 10? And it got to the point where she would say, my pain has no number. So like things like that, when you start to think about, if you're like, one of the things from in HER2, people like the women complain about the diarrhea. So what does that mean? Is it every minute, every day? Can you go to work? Can you feed your kid? Can you function in your life? So it's, how do you measure, or how do you evaluate what you're willing to do to get rid of your cancer that affects your life? And what is that balance we have to, that our pharma partners have to take into consideration as they're thinking about the side effects? And, I think when patients think about side effects, we think about, can I go to work? Can I go to my kid's baseball game? Can I go to the grocery store without having to poop my pants? Can I not wear, can I make it home from work without going to the bathroom in the car? Right? So they're trying to measure that now and start to think about, when you say this is going to make you nauseous, okay, well, what does that really mean to your life?
Exactly.
And I think that's a really important conversation for us as patients. And there is some flexibility in the dosage. And I remember my first chemo, I got C. diff. Remember, I got this horrible bacterial infection, and they said, well, okay, we're going to cut your chemo in half. And I was like, well, is it going to work? Like, because it made me sick. Is it the right thing? Should we cut it in half? Like, am I going to lose something? And I was scared that maybe it wasn't going to be enough chemo to kill the cancer. All those factors are now being put into place. And now there is some flexibility in the dosing. And you can go back to your doctor and say, right, Mo? I mean,
it's true, but let me ask you this, because I think this is where we struggle as clinicians. Everything is so subjective. So if everyone's pain is different, right? Your tolerance of loose stools may be different than someone else's ability to tolerate loose stools. Right. For you, diarrhea might be 2 a day. For somebody else, it's 6 a day. Like,
exactly.
What are the tools to standardize then if everyone's experience is so different? So I'm curious to know, were there any outcomes from the study that you guys did that that helped to adjust for that? Because if every person responds differently to a drug, how does a drug company ever standardize a dose?
Right. Well, and what we did was kind of the preliminary research. So we did a bunch of qualitative research of focus groups to just sort of hear what patients were thinking, sort of, like sort of what are the perceptions about it. So now
I love that. It starts with listening. You're absolutely right.
yeah, and we had great listening sessions. And so the next phase now is to go to do a quant study, which they're going to field in a couple of weeks, probably before the end of the year, right at the first of the year. So then we'll be able to quantify, all right, these were really the main things that are driving this. So then we'll quantify it and come back with a new report in a couple of months. So they're doing a really disciplined approach to understand the problem and how it's affecting patients. So I think we're going to get some really good data in the next round, because we're going to validate some of the things that they heard from patients.
This is a good sign, that even though we can't cure cancer, at least we can maybe start to perfect the science of eradicating the cancer cells while reducing the side effects and improving the quality of life of the patient. Like you said, it's totally a delicate dance, but I thought that was a topic that came up a lot. And I was just, as a patient, really happy to hear that, because, you don't want to just think that it's just like, let's get rid of the cancer and not, take into account what that means for your day-to-day life, because that's important. You have to be able to read through everything.
Yeah. And we'll be helping them recruit patients for this next phase of the study. So if anybody wants to participate, email me, ricky@touchbbca.org. You know how to find me. I'll put my email in the comments, but we're going to be willing, because I want to make sure, guess what, that there's representation in the study. And they included me and Jamil in the beginning study. So she played a role, and she's going to also play a role with her experience with hospitals,
That's great.
First initiative, so.
I also remember that, I believe it was in George Sledge's interview, Melissa, where, and I feel bad that we missed this presentation. There's so many presentations going on simultaneously at SABCS, so you can't attend all of them. But he had mentioned a presentation. The takeaway that I got from at least his synopsis was that we don't always have to do more, right? That there was data now that showed that even in, lessened doses, and with throwing less at the cancer, and this is of all breast cancers, not specifically triple negative, you still had the same results. You still had positive results. And I thought that was really encouraging when we're talking about balancing, quality of life issues and having that kind of flexibility. Like Dr. Mo said, not everyone experiences everything the same way.
Right.
So if you have that flexibility, and that from this dosage to this dosage, you could still reap the same results, that gives the doctor and the patient flexibility in treatment, which I think is
right. Which, I think before they just threw it all at you, like when I had, even when I did chemo, I did TAC altogether. They don't do that anymore. So I had the Red Devil.
They do a little bit, but less and less. I mean, because we're refining it. And one of the things that I took away also is that not just in drug trials, but even in terms of who gets radiation, right? There were 2 studies that looked at whether or not women should get radiation if they had stage 0 breast cancer and they did breast conservation, right? And they're looking at genomic or tumor information to guide who should get radiation. And 2, if your nodes were positive before your chemo and you had a complete response after chemo, do we need to radiate your lymph nodes there too? And these are also quality of life issues. So it's not just in the drug realm, but we as scientists, as clinicians, are starting to think more about the overall, how toxic is what we're doing to people.
Right.
The risk of things like lymphedema and lung disease and fibrosis and cardiac toxicity from things like radiation. And so we're getting a bit more thoughtful, and even looking at precision in terms of our surgical approach, our radiation, our dosing. Can we do, what we call hypofractionation, less doses of it, so we don't get quite so toxic and harm the heart and the lungs. And it's really nice to sort of see the pendulum swing back away from, sort of throw the book at you. But I think we also have to be careful and know who we can de-escalate for. And we can't just assume, all the women in this trial, shows that you can de-escalate, when, like you said, there may not have been Black women in that trial. There may not have been premenopausal women in that trial. There may not have been, or all the women in that trial took tamoxifen for 5 years. We're seeing that in some of the radiation data that came out of Europe, especially. Those women took TAM for 5 years. in order to forego radiation. And so women here are like, yeah, I don't want to do radiation and I'm not taking that pill. Well, then that study doesn't apply to you.
Yeah.
And so you got to really have that conversation with your doctor and get into the weeds, and don't be afraid of asking your doctor these types of questions.
Yeah.
Well, I think that that's one of the key things that we, that the program, our SABCS program, wants to bring to people, right? The interviews that Melissa did, they're about 10 to 15 minutes long. These are not long interviews.
They're really
You
great.
can sit through them, take some notes, and feel so empowered to be able to advocate for yourself and say, you know what, this applies to me, or this doesn't apply to me. And Melissa was actually, as some of our interviews or her interviews were put up, she was getting messages from people who viewed the interview saying, wow, I'm going to take this information to my doctor. And that's what we are hoping for.
Yeah. And if you have questions, call us, email us, I'll put all of our emails in the chat. We're happy to, Melissa can probably speak best to the interviews because she did them. But we all, Haley was there most of the time. I wasn't, I was running around more than most of the time, but I think that, we do want to be a resource, and we did this for a reason. We did this so people could be there and feel it and hear it and learn from it. So we're happy to share whatever we can to, to educate you and get you involved in the conversations. And I think part of, people always ask me, like, what's our job? It's to bring hope. And I did feel really hopeful from this year's SABCS, more than last year. I felt like last year there was like, I didn't feel like super hopeful about new stuff. I felt like we're still years away from stuff, and we are still years away from new stuff, but I felt like there was more chatter, more conversation, there was more color, there was more diversity, there was more
advocates,
right? Don't you think so? Across the board, there were more women, there were more Black women, there were more, like, I felt like there was just more consideration, more
of a sense of urgency. I felt that the people in the room, in any room that I walked into, I felt like that sense of urgency that we feel that we sometimes don't see in the scientific community. I felt it. I felt that they were disappointed that they didn't have more. And I think that it's not for lack of things kind of in the pipeline or things that are being worked on. I think it was just, the timing of the conference, right? You're not going to have, new developments every 6 months per se, but I think that there's so much that's being worked on that is almost, it's brewing and it's getting there.
right.
And
I love
felt
from more of a human interest perspective is that, especially being like a patient advocate, you think of researchers and sometimes even doctors, no offense, Dr. Mo, but like, being in a laboratory and it's just all science. But if you tune into these interviews, just about every single doctor, no matter how far up they are, they all have such a vested interest in this disease because they were affected by it. They lost an aunt or a grandmother. They are so emotionally connected to it. And I think just like with anything else, you can't be really good at something unless you're really passionate about it. And that's what gave me hope, because I feel like they are just like so committed to figuring this thing out.
Right. I love that, because it means that we're doing a better job of teaching physicians emotional quotient, right? Because the reality is this is our life's work, and we all do it for a reason that's not tied to, it's tied to either lived experience or something we saw our family members go through, or something touched us and moved. Like, people don't just go into cancer just to do it. It's not that type of field,
Right.
And so the fact that this is now coming through in the conversations and in the research and the why behind it means that we're doing a better job of training doctors. And that makes me really proud, because I think that's what's been missing for so long from so many of these conversations. You look at our commercials, like, may cause blindness, may cause this, may cause loss of limb, and it's like, well, where's the humanity in all of this?
Where's the good stuff, right? What's
exactly. Where's the humanity? So I love that.
And it goes full circle with this whole conversation about wanting to make sure that we minimize the side effects while still eradicating the cancer. It all kind of makes sense.
And I think it's because people are talking. When I first started going to SABCS in 2006, people weren't, there were no advocates there that I remember. And it wasn't, or maybe there were a couple, but it wasn't nothing like it is right now. And now I feel like there's so many opportunities. And I think that industry is also helping to create those opportunities where you have researchers speaking to patients and to patient advocates. And it's just creating this, understanding that's then fueling research in a different way. And I think that's so important.
Yeah. I think also too, you can feel the love. I felt the love this time. I felt like it was all old home week. I felt that, I feel like our pharma partners are just loving on people here, and that they're giving us love and giving us support, and you can feel their support. I felt like the doctors are giving us love, and the scientists are giving, I felt, and maybe just because I've done it now for a few years and I've started, know people, but I think even Dr. Stacy Mulder, like hearing her stories was like so great, because she really had a personal reason for doing this work, as you said, Mo, and I'm looking at some of the doctor stuff, like the doctors that we talked to just were so great to just hear what they're doing. Dr. Carey, and remember I interviewed Dr. Carey, gosh, a long time ago, right?
So
That was
long ago.
one of the first doctors I interviewed on TNBC Day, but even her work has come so far. And I think also they're advancing in their work, maybe because we're seeing their progress of their work, and they're getting closer to things and seeing more progress. And I just felt a lot of hope that, and I love what Deltra says, she hopes that breast cancer will become a disease, a disease where you can just take an antibiotic for. like
How amazing would that be?
Right,
Oh my God. I hope we come back from next year's SABCS with news
No,
like
sign
that.
me up.
Could
Yeah.
you imagine?
Sign me up. I know Dr. Nanda, Dr. Rita, they all gave these interviews, you guys should go watch them. And I'll put the link in there, but I put the link in the.
And one thing to mention, when, Ricky, when you first showcased the website, your guide to SABCS.com, one of the first things that people saw was the survey, the questions, right? That's where people during our time at SABCS, they clicked on that and they anonymously could ask a question, and then we would find the answer. And
Right.
one of the great things that Melissa did was she cataloged that. So at some point in the next couple of weeks, we're going to have a list of questions and direct you to the correct interview to find the answer to that specific question.
Right. I'm going to find it and put it back up here. Let me find it first before I try to find it on my computer. But yeah, I'll show you the website again, because it's all there. It's all good stuff.
I love this, because if you're thinking about, and if you're kind of new to the space, I know there's a couple people in the chat are still in treatment, and you may feel completely overwhelmed by either this conversation or by the thought of going to a cancer conference with 10,000 people and a bunch of researchers and posters and science. There is something for you, and there's a way that you can begin to ease into this, right? By finding the advocacy spaces and the lounge and the track that's for you, but then branching out and going to those poster sessions and maybe asking a question and having a coffee, or with a doctor or a researcher. Like, this is a wonderful place for sharing and exploring and getting your feet wet in advocacy. So and there are funds and resources available for advocates to go, and I think that's important for you to know. Also, for all of these cancer conferences, things that are coming up, I know we got some deadlines coming up for abstracts and stuff in January, but all year long, there's research being presented in so many different cities across the country. And it means that there's an opportunity for your voice to be heard. And so what I hope people take away from this is, I hope that they recognize that you can do it too. And that you don't have to know everything. You don't have to know anything. All you got to know is you want to go, and that way is there for you, and that there's an opportunity for you to go and learn so much and to make these types of connections, because these folks are there, and they're walking around with their microphones, and they're walking around with their smiles and hugs, and they're like waiting to embrace you. So all the advocacy groups are right there for you.
Yeah, and we're going to keep doing it and reporting back, and looking out for, we're kind of combing the science all the time. We're reading the journals. We're trying to bring you the latest information. And so, but, we'll keep putting updates here. So here you see, send us your questions, and Melissa used us to ask things. We have our interviews, SABCS, I love our SABCS TV. So we have all of our interviews here, but it's all here on the website.
And they're all, like I said, they're not overwhelming. They're short.
Yeah.
And Melissa, has a way of asking the
So good.
questions that makes it, you will understand the answers, and be able to have real takeaways from each of these interviews.
Yeah, so Dr. Carey,
Oh
Dr.
my God, how cute are they?
How cute are these? Aren't these so
Just
cute?
also approachable. Like it's like talking to a friend. They were just all so lovely to
Yeah.
talk to, really.
Yep, Dr. Stacy.
You could just watch it unfold your launch.
Dr. Lynn was so great too. She was just so warm. They're
So
all
great.
so these are all worth, watching, even though Dr. Mary, so great. These were
So
all
great.
And
So
we're not even done yet. We still have a couple
was-
of interviews to
Yeah.
go, because I think what we like to do, just like with Dr. Mo here, is give some of our scientific advisors, a few days to kind of take it all in and to think about what they saw and what they heard, before we interview them.
Yeah. You even have me and Haley in there. What a concept.
even
I
come
love
on.
So let me ask you this, what comes next for you? What's on your agenda for 2024 for your various organizations? Like what should people look out for that's on the horizon for you, from Touch and from TNBC Foundation and from Cancer Fashionista?
You go, Haley.
Me first? Well, we always have for the triple negative breast cancer community, a huge menu of educational programs, teleconferences, webinars, where we break down, the latest in science, but also help you navigate all the resources that are available to you, help you navigate mental health issues, all of that. And you can find out more about our programming on, our website, tnbcfoundation.org. We have 5, including 2 with Ricky and Touch the Black Breast Cancer Alliance, community Zoom chats, which really allows people wherever they are in the country or even in the world to, kind of touch base and be on a Zoom and talk to other women who are, walking in their shoes with triple negative breast cancer, whether you're metastatic or early stage disease or just thriving post-treatment, wherever you are, we have, a Zoom chat for you. And then I guess the first big campaign of the year is in March. March 3rd is TNBC Awareness Day, and actually every day in March is TNBC Awareness Day. So we have a huge campaign going around that. So stay tuned for that if you are in the TNBC community.
Lois?
Thank you. I am board chair for the Triple Negative Breast Cancer Foundation, so I'm sort of a double agent. So I'm very excited, along with Haley, to launch our Power of 3 Triple Negative Breast Cancer Awareness Day and Month campaign in March. We're already getting the machine going for that, and really just furthering our mission for TNBC. And then on the Cancer Fashionista side, I have my podcast, Dear Cancer, I'm Beautiful. I'm proud to say we're over 100 episodes, and I just launched a new platform called Your Voice, Your Health, which is an extension of the podcast, which is dedicated to hot topics and advocacy. And I've been focusing on step therapy. So if you want to go to Dear Cancer, I'm Beautiful on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, you can check that out there. And then I'll be doing my usual lipstick, dancing, hoop earring kind of, silly stuff that I like to throw in there as well.
And making us feel good and look good. Making us feel good. And I'll say quickly, we're doing more when we trial. We've now signed up 15,200 Black women for clinical trials. We're on that bandwagon, and we're going to keep doing Love of My Girls campaigns, and we're going to keep it going. We're going to be here next week. Mo, we're going to have another great show with Dr. Lauren McCullough, and she is like an epidemiologist at Emory, and she's studying the social determinants of health. And she has some amazing data about people and lives and how just any factors in your life can affect you. And she basically is proving the point that it doesn't matter how much money you have, where you live, what you eat. Cancer is a factor, and Black women die more readily. So I know Haley has a hard stop. We're so glad you're here. I love you guys.
Thank you for having us on this. I love it.
Thank you so much for having us.
I'm wearing my crown today because it's Christmas, so I'm going to keep wearing my crown.
Love it. That is a great crown.
We'll see
Oh,
you
and
next
Dr. Mo,
Wednesday.
you're going to come on the podcast and talk to me more about
You better
this.
believe it. We're
So
setting
I know
that
where
date.
you live.
So
And
feel
you're welcome
better, Mo.
anytime.
Feel
Thank
better.
you so much.
Feel better.
Rest in love, gang.
I still love you guys. I love you guys so much. We'll
Love you
keep.
more.
Yeah.
So say your line, Mo.
Oh, relatable, reliable, real, blah, blah, blah. You know it every Wednesday.
You're Robitussin. Okay, bye.
Bye.
Again, Rusty love. Love you guys. Thank you. Bye.
Good night.
Bye.